Stonemaier Games, and this is my weekly live cast for Stonemaier Games. I have a cat here who's being a little fussy, so I thought I'd put him on camera for a minute. This is Walter, if you don't know him. Hey, Walter, say hi. He's saying hi there. Yeah, so today is Wednesday, October 13th. I'm going to put Walter down here. Let's see. Right there. And today, yeah, what are we talking about today? A couple different topics to cover, and I'm happy as usual to answer any questions that you may have. Hey, Tony, about anything you want, as long as it's not a spoiler. It doesn't even have to be Stonemaier Games related. Let me start off today with my chocolate of the day. I've been craving Tony's chocolate, Tony's Chocolonely, I guess you might say. Really delicious milk chocolate. This is my favorite version of it, the hazelnut version of it, and I got it at Whole Foods just yesterday, Monday maybe, yeah, and it is really good. I'm showing you a whole pack because I have a different one that's open. So, what is your treat or indulgence of the day today? Hey, George, thanks for dropping by today. Um, what do I have going on? So the big thing last week, I spent a lot of time at Geekway to the West. Geekway to the West is the type of convention where you just go and play games for a couple days, and they usually have it in May or June. They had this one in in October due to I don't know reasons. This is when they could get the convention center for this year, and this is when they thought they could do it as safely as possible. It was fully vaccinated, fully masked. I felt very safe there, despite being around a lot of people, and I had a ton of fun. I played a ton of games there. Let's see if I can rattle off the games that I played. I have them on my phone here. Posted them on Instagram the other day. So the games I played at Geekway, um, played the Crew Mission Deep Sea. I played Holy. I played Masters of the Renaissance. Played Morano Light Masters, which I just did a video about yesterday. Um, I played Obsession. I played Planet Unknown, Honshu, which I had played before. Also played Dice Miner, which I had played before. Played Fleet the Dice Game and Splendor Marvel. So a lot of new to me games and a few old favorites. And just had a wonderful time playing all these games at Geekway to the West last week. Carlos has a question here. He says, have you ever considered including a QR code in a board game box so that buyers can see the teaser you produced for the game as a way of gaining more information before purchasing? I know boxes are made well in advance of teasers, but you can create a QR code to a parked URL, and when the teaser is ready, you can just upload it, or you can make the QR code a sticker and add it before getting the game to stores. That's a good question, Carlos. I thought about it, but the reason I haven't done it is that with the way the smartphones are now, it seems almost just as easy to type in a URL. At the same time, um, it on the game boxes. I'm trying to think here. On the game boxes, I don't have a URL that even goes directly to the teaser trailer. So perhaps what you're saying here is if that is the main feature, if that's a neat way to draw people in at a game store, if they're looking through the games and they want to watch the teaser trailer, the QR code would make it really easy to do so. You're totally right about that. Whereas including like a YouTube links, I don't think are particularly easy to um, type into the box, and the QR code does stand out a little bit more than a typed out URL on the box. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Let's see. Chad says his wife, who isn't much of a gamer, is really enjoying Rolling Realms. That's great to hear, Chad. And yeah, Rolling Realms, I guess a quick update about fulfillment and shipping. So we started the pre-order last week at this time, last Wednesday, and I think, as far as I know, fulfillment is going really, really well in all four of our fulfillment regions: Canada, the US, which ships to the US and around the world, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK and Europe. Uh, as far as I know, I think all champion orders may have shipped already, and if not, they're going to ship this week for sure. And then we'll get on to the non champion orders right after that. I've decided what I'm going to do about live plays, at least for the foreseeable future for Rolling Realms. Starting tomorrow at 1 o'clock St. Louis time, which is Central time, I am going to do a live play of 3 realms. So essentially one round of the game. And I'll put that on YouTube. I'll put that probably here on the Stonemaier Games Facebook page, maybe over in the Rolling Realms Facebook group, or both. And then I don't know how regular I'll do it. I might try to do it every day. I might do it every other day. I'll do another set of 3 different realms, and then another one, and I'll kind of do them in sets of 3. So I'll do 3 different realms comboed together for a round of the game, post that video, and then I'll do another set of different cards that I didn't do in the first round. I'll do that. So I'll do it kind of videos round by round, so they don't end up being all that long, especially since I will be teaching each of the realms. It really does not take long to teach or play, but because when I combine the teach with it, it can end up extending the video probably around an hour to do a full teach and playthrough. But we'll see. I don't know for sure. We'll find out. So this is how I'm going to experiment with the first set of playthroughs. I'll do it round by round, one video at a time. And the first one, I plan to do it tomorrow at 1 o'clock, either here or in the Rolling Realms Facebook group, or both if I can do them simultaneously. Yeah. Viola says that they're going to Essen Spiel tomorrow, or Spiel Essen. Any recommendations I should check out? I haven't played, I don't think I've played really any of the games coming out at Essen except for Morano Light Masters, which I have on my shelf over here. A partner of ours, Matago, sent me an advanced copy to play through and try out. I had played the online version, but I hadn't played the in-person version yet, and I had a great time with it. I talked about that in my video yesterday. So if you go to my YouTube channel and check out my video on Morano Light Masters, you can see an abstract game recommendation that I have for Essen. But that's the only one that I've actually played, so I can't recommend anything else yet. But I'm curious to see what you come out of Essen with and what you're excited about after you go there. A few people are posting their indulgences of the day. I mentioned that mine is a big Tony's chocolate bar. I'm not going to eat the whole chocolate bar today, but I'll have a few pieces, I'm sure. Nathan said that he was able to get to Geekway at the last minute and he met some great people and made some new friends. And yeah, that was the same way I felt about it. I played some games with some friends here in St. Louis, but I also tried to welcome anyone into those games or play games with a variety of random people, or some not so random. Like there was Tim. Tim came from Indiana to come play some games for a day. We played Obsession and we played Planet Unknown. And Tim was also very kind enough to give me a copy of his new book of poetry, which, as you can tell, has a slight gaming theme in a few of the poems. Thank you, Tim, for that. Yeah, it was really great to meet people at Geekway. I often forget how much I love playing games with a variety of random people. As much as I enjoy my gaming group, it's really neat to meet new people and play new games with them. I met Ambassador Jay, and Andy, I believe, was his girlfriend, and played games with Suzanne, someone's here who's here in St. Louis, but I've never gotten to play games with her before, and others too. Just had a really, really wonderful time. Steven says that he is also loving Rolling Realms. He says, these are the biggest and loudest dice I now own. Thanks for getting it to me so quickly. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Steven. All credit goes to our fulfillment center for fulfilling these orders so quickly, and I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. Todd has a comment about the broken token. Yeah. I won't go into it here, but I just want to make it clear for the broken token or any company that sells products that look like they are Stonemaier Games products or related to Stonemaier Games products. We have certain companies that we authorize them to do that. We say you may make something for Stonemaier Games or make something related to a Stonemaier Games product. They have to sign an agreement to make it very clear that they are not making official Stonemaier Games products. And they have to make that wording. They can't use official art from the game or graphics from the game or even the name from the game. They can't put it on the product packaging because that's a trademark violation. But we love it when other creators create cool stuff for our games to serve our fans. With that comes a greater responsibility to serve our fans ethically in the way those companies are run, and really to make it very clear that it's not a Stonemaier Games product. I will say that we once had an agreement with a broken token, one of these general agreements that we have with all third-party accessory creators to make accessories for our games if they want, as long as they follow those guidelines. We no longer have such an agreement with the broken token. So anything you see on their website is not authorized by Stonemaier Games to sell in any way. And crucially, for any of these companies, any of these third-party creators, we don't receive royalties for them. We don't ask for royalties because we want them to be able to offer those products to you at a reasonable cost, a reasonable price. So we don't ask for royalties for them. That's a big picture answer. There's also a blog post that I have about this, about third-party accessories on our the third-party accessory agreement that we use for third-party accessory creators. Dave says, hello from Ohio. You'd be a great fit for Keith Law's podcast to discuss board game design. He covers a wide range of topics and he reviews games too, so it might work well. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I've had some quick email chats with Keith over the last few years. He had very positive things to say about Wingspan. So I hear, actually. I haven't read his review, but in the emails he said that he loves Wingspan. Seems like well, he is a really impressive journalist beyond board games. But yeah, it would be amazing to appear on his podcast someday if that's an option. I did appear on the board game. What was the board game binge podcast? I want to get this right. What podcast was I on just the other day? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of it. They posted on Instagram. Let me see if I can get it. Here it goes. It is Back of the Shelf. The Back of the Shelf podcast. Had a great chat with the guys over there. Just talking about, actually, it's the type of podcast where I talk about nothing really Stonemaier related. I talked about Mysterium Park, and I talked about written narrative in games in that podcast. A little bit of content that I've created recently. I had a chat with Iridia developer Ira Fay about combat systems in games, both combat against the AI and player versus player combat systems. Posted that on my YouTube channel on Sunday. And I've done some blog posts about the impact of the sides of boxes and how to think about, how I try to think about and how I'm learning to think more about the sides of boxes, the impact that the sides of boxes have, game boxes. I also did a blog post last Thursday about the annual Stonemaier Games charity auction that we just finished up. It's a very short thing. We did it last Wednesday through last Friday. And we ended up raising nearly $20,000 for 12 different amazing charities selected by the 12 different board game media members, content creators who were featured in this year's auction. I love doing this every year. I love supporting these amazing charities and these amazing creators. And if you haven't checked it out already, feel free to still check it out. The auction itself is over, but it's still an opportunity to learn about some great charities and some great content creators that you may not have already heard of. Looks like Walter is back. I don't know if you can see him back there, right through that chair. He's going to be a little fussy boy today, but we'll see how it goes. Tony says that he also played Rolling Realms for the first time last night. He won, and his group liked it. And he says, any thoughts about adding a set of Rolling Realm cards in future game releases? So the plan is, Tony, not that we won't put them in the games themselves, but we are planning to make little promo packs that include new realms. So, for example, here is the promo pack for a Rolling Realms realm based on Rolling Realms. So, like I said, we're going to do one of these for each of our games, and we don't have a realm for Rolling Realms itself yet. So this will be the first promo pack that we release. They'll be available on our web store, and each one just includes 6 cards, one for each player. So you can add them to your set of Rolling Realms cards. And that way it's essentially a living game, a living card game for a roll and write game, which I don't think has been done before. So they won't be, I'm saying, they won't be included in the game boxes for future games, but they will be available as an optional add-on purchase that you can get when you pre-order another game for us. Although I don't even know necessarily if we'll always have the realms ready in time for the pre-order for any new game. We'll see about that. We'll try to do that, but I'm not quite sure if we'll be able to do that. Obviously, we didn't have the Rolling Realms promo realms ready for the Rolling Realms pre-order. Mike is getting ready for his copy of Rolling Realms. It'll be his 8th Stonemaier game in his collection. That's awesome, Mike. Thank you for pursuing so many of our different games. We only have 12 games, so you have most of them so far. Viola says that Morano Light Masters, she asked if it has real glass, and it does indeed have real glass components in the game, which I think is really clever because the game is about kind of glass sculpting and glass blowing. Alexis says he recently discovered the BGG Artist Series poster and was saddened to see that the pieces for Scythe and Wingspan have already sold out. Maybe wonder. So just to be clear, that is a Board Game Geek thing. So kind of similar to what I was saying about third-party accessory creators a few minutes ago. That's a Board Game Geek thing that they made, their poster series, completely unrelated except by association to Stonemaier Games. So hopefully they'll make more, but I have no control over that. Alexi says, it made me wonder, though, how does one go about asking publishers for permission to create products that work for use of your titles? Oh, good. Yeah, I just covered that a second ago. If you didn't hear me talk about it, it's a little bit of a long explanation, but rewind a little bit. You can see information about that. And you can search for third-party accessories. I think if you search for those terms, third-party accessories on the Stonemaier Games website, you'll see an article about how I talk about that, how we approach that. And you mentioned how do royalties work, and the key is that we don't ask for royalties. As long as you make it abundantly clear that what you're making is not a Stonemaier Games product, as long as you are not creating new gameplay content, that would be a copyright infringement, or if you're using art or graphic design that we made using the trademark names that we have, as long as you don't do any of that stuff, which is covered in a very short agreement, we don't ask for any royalties. Yeah. And we give you permission to do that. So read the article about that. Check out the article on our website, and there's contact information on that article, so you can reach out to me and let me know what you're thinking about making. Tim's here. I just mentioned Tim, who I got to play some games with at Geekway. He says he needs more of that chocolate of the day. He says Obsession and Planet Unknown were great to play, and they really were. A few people asked me like what my favorite game was at Geekway, and I really enjoyed almost every game that I played. Almost every game I played, I would play again. There were maybe 2 games that I was a little so-so on, but I don't want to talk about them. I'd rather talk about the other, 8 games that I really, really enjoyed. And among them were Obsession and Planet Unknown. I really, really enjoyed both of those games. Had a lot of fun playing them and would gladly play them again. Chaz says, any advice for opening a new game store, aside from carrying a full complement of Stonemaier titles, which is a no-brainer? Oh, Chad, that's a big question. I know next to nothing about running a game store other than kind of the conversations that I've had with game store owners over time. I would focus on what you can offer your customers that online game stores can't, or have both. Offer an online component, ways for customers to order games from you online, and also have a special in-store experience, a reason for people to come into the store and have great customer service, a great place to try games or play games at the store. I think that is really, really crucial for having that in-person space. One little thing that I've noticed for a couple game stores in my area, I would love to be able to look at what they have in stock right now by looking at their web store or their website. That would be really, really helpful. And even if they combine it with a web store so I could purchase it and then go pick it up, would be amazing. Their Miniature Market does do that. Miniature Market is mainly an online store, but they do have a pretty good, pretty big in-person brick and mortar store here in St. Louis. But there's some other great local stores that just don't offer that feature. And I would love to be able to look up at a store's website if they have a game in stock or a product in stock. What was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh, the other thing that is kind of surprising to me about game stores is that they don't reach out to the publisher as much as they could or they should to get products that distributors aren't stocking, or to answer questions that maybe their customers are having. Like when is a game going to be back in stock, that sort of thing. So please know that you can always reach out directly to publishers. We love hearing directly from retailers. If you have questions or if you're trying to get something that you aren't able to get from distributors, just reach out to the publisher. I know that takes a lot of extra work to do that, but if it's a big product that you really need to have in your store, I think it's worth the extra time. Does anyone else have advice for Chad? Maybe people in the comments can say, what is your favorite thing, your number one favorite thing about your local game store? Feel free to mention that store and mention what that element is that you really, really love, so Chad can try to replicate it in the store that he is thinking about opening. Dave says that he really enjoyed my blog post about the box sides. This was the blog post I posted on Monday. What are some of your favorites for both Stonemaier Games and other publishers? Well, even in that photo, I thought that the Architects of the West Kingdom box was really great. I liked the Mission Red Planet box, and I thought that the Dice Miner box side was really good as well. Rolling Realm, I was just looking at the Rolling Realms box side to see how we did it. I think it's a pretty solid box size. It's a smaller box, but the name itself is in bold and includes crucial information about the playing time, player count, things like that. It shows that we have a solo mode, shows the publisher, and a little bit of art to show you what's going on in the game. Although not really. We don't. I guess the die in the logo shows that. Also, we always try to have at least one side of the box that is vertical. So if you want to keep it on your shelf in vertical orientation, you can do that and still have the side aligned properly. It makes for smaller font, but it also adds extra space to include images and things like that. So I think Rolling Realms is a pretty good box side design there. I'll come back to questions in a second. Let me see if there's any topics that I need to cover. Played disc golf a couple times this past weekend. Had a great time playing some disc golf at a couple different local courses. And some things I've been watching recently. I watched Free Solo finally for the first time this weekend. Really, really amazing movie about rock climbing and perseverance and fear and relationships. Just a lot of stuff in a really cinematic documentary style bundle. We've been watching Foundation on Apple TV, and we just started watching the new seasons of Sex Education on Netflix and the Great British Bake Off, or Great British Baking Show, whatever they call it now, on Netflix as well. Enjoying both of those shows so far. Tim says, have you seen this Birdwatcher game that's on Kickstarter? I immediately thought of Wingspan, though it looks like the gameplay may be different enough. Yeah, I haven't looked into it too much. I was just assuming they wouldn't copy Wingspan's gameplay. Not that, well, it probably would be a problem if they did that with a bird theme. If they did a completely other theme and they were inspired by it, I'd be totally fine with that. But yeah, no, I haven't dug too deep in it because I already have Wingspan. I don't really need another game with that theme necessarily, although I really shouldn't be dismissing it by the theme alone. There are plenty of games that I have where I have two games with the same theme and they're very different games. So, Tim, I should check that out. I will check out Birdwatcher on Kickstarter after this video. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to my attention. Bavir, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Can you explain how localization works? Use Canada as an example. I don't know if Canada is a great example for localization because we sell our games in English in Canada. I have an article about localization. If you check out Stonemaier Games and search for the word localization, you'll see an article about it where it goes into depth about how it works. The very brief version about how it works for Stonemaier Games is we create a game in English or a product in English, and then we turn to our localization partners, companies around the world that specialize in a certain language and a certain region. And we say, hey, we have this game available. If you're interested in it, you are welcome to be our localization partner for it. If they agree to do that, they are in charge of translating the game and sending and uploading the translated versions of the files to our manufacturer. And we coordinate a consolidated print run of all those different localization partners. So we're making everything all at once for better optimization, rather than having each partner go to their own printer or each partner even go directly to our manufacturer. We kind of coordinate that production so it happens at the same time. And those partners pay us they pay us twice, really. They pay us once up front for half of the manufacturing cost and half of the royalty for that game. And they pay us once manufacturing is complete. They pay for the other half of manufacturing, the other half of the royalty. And then from then on, the game is just theirs to sell and do with as they wish. We also assist with things like the marketing, like we handle making the teaser trailer for the game. We have marketing materials, things like that. And we've covered all the sunk costs. So they're just really paying for the manufacturing and the royalties. So we've handled all the art and design costs and things like that up front. And also, from that revenue that we get from localization partners, we pay a royalty to the game's designer and our Automa team. I think that's a brief overview. Some other companies might do it differently. Like they might just say, okay, here are the rights to the game. Do with it as you wish. You can make this game with your manufacturer on your own schedule. But that's not how we typically do it at Stonemaier Games. But again, I have an in-depth article about it. You might want to check that out to get a much longer answer about how it works. Tim says, speaking of sides of boxes, Tony Brewer and I had a conversation about this about a year ago on the importance of blurbs on the back covers of books versus the art and spine of having text. Some books have such thin spines that it's hard to have shelf presence other than the covers. Sometimes you don't want to muddy art with a lot of text. Yeah, That's an interesting topic because I've seen some books where they have a quote on the front of the book, at the top of the book, from a very well-known author saying how much they love the book, and that can be pretty impactful, especially if that author is way more famous than the author on the book. At the same time, I've seen some quotes on the backs of the books, and that can be impactful as well. So I think it depends. Probably depends on the book and the author and how popular the series is at that point. Uh, Chad says, funny that you gave yourself more work every time you make a new game. We may need a new realm circle on the timing chart. A realm circle, yeah. I do actually, I have a very long checklist of things that I go through. And that checklist doesn't even really start until I finish the design for a game. It's around 120, maybe 150 different things that I need to do once I finish the design of the game and it's starting to enter production. And on that checklist now is design the Rolling Realms promo cards for that new game. Yeah, you're right. It's a ever expanding checklist of things to do. Simon says, if one of your games could be turned into a movie, which would it be? I think Scythe would make a really great cinematic experience. We have other, world. I think Euphoria would be fun, but I think Scythe would just look really, really cool, whether it's a movie or a TV show or something like that. I only have the tabletop rights to Scythe, or Stonemaier Games only has the tabletop rights. Jakub Rosalski, the creator of the world, the illustrator, has those other rights to do something like that with it, and I really hope he does someday. Also, Red Rising would be absolutely amazing. Let's see. Chad mentions that he has. Well, Tim mentioned a good thing. Tim, what's your favorite thing about your brother's bookstore in your area? They have some. They're gonna be a bookstore and a game store. Chad says he has a not friendly game store that's closing. That did some really bad things. I'd rather focus on the positive. Let's focus on the things about your local game store that you really love. But Chad is right that there are things that you can certainly learn from Yelp reviews about game stores that are not as friendly as they could be, that you can maybe avoid if you are thinking about opening the game store. Here's one. Viola says that Koning Willem in Deventer is always incredibly friendly and really good at offering guidance on the games. Good morning, Brist. Thanks for joining us. Dexter says, I'm a Halloween and horror nut. I am not a fan of cooperative games, though, and most horror-themed games are cooperative. Have you ever considered a PvP Halloween game? Something medium to heavy would be a bonus. It's not a theme that I'm really pursuing with my game designs, but I will say that a recent game that I played for the first time, Nemesis. Nemesis is not a cooperative game. I think maybe it got that reputation somehow, but it is very much a competitive game where you are trying to win. And to even survive, it means that you often need to cooperate a little bit with the other players, but it is not a cooperative game. And it is scary. I think it is a great kind of horror-themed Halloween game in space. So if you haven't played it, I'd recommend Nemesis for that purpose. Burst says that they're introducing my friends to gaming using Scythe. That's a big jump right away, but I applaud your willingness to do that. Based on the theme, Burst says they seem very interested in the theme. Any recommendations or tips for a 5-player game of Scythe? So I have a video about, I know this is my answer to everything. I have a video, I have an article about it, but I do have a video about how to teach Scythe. You might want to check that out. You can look for that on YouTube or on our website. The core things I'd recommend is give each of those new players the quick start guide. There's a quick start card that I included in the game, one for each of the 5 players, and that goes through some things that they can think about for each of their early turns of the game. My number one recommendation, though, would be to, in the rules explanation, start off by covering a few core concepts, and they're even printed on the quick start card. Just quick things about the game so you can understand how the game works. And sorry, I just had a little note here. And after you do that, just start playing. And do that by taking turns for each of the players. So you cover the turns, you control the turns for each of the players, and do that so you can use each player's turn as an example of how the top row actions work. Do that for one round, and then in the second or third round, show them how the bottom row actions work. So almost completely, you take over the game for the first 2 rounds of the game, and inside that's totally fine, especially for a learning game. And you can give them a little bit of choice. You could say, okay, this turn you are going to. I'm going to show you how to do a move action. You are going to do a move action, and maybe they could say, okay, I want to move this. I want to move that. You can let them figure that part out. But yeah, just give them a few core concepts and then start taking turns explaining how the actions work by actually taking turns for other players. I think that teaching method works really, really well for Scythe. Simon says, when can we get news on the next Tapestry expansion? My plan is to start talking about it in November, but that depends on freight shipping. If freight shipping is really slow, which it is these days, but I have already buffer time built into it. But if it's even slower than I expect, then it might be December instead. Sean says that Wizards Asylum Comics and Games is a great game store local to him. He says their staff is always helpful and willing to listen to your requests. That's wonderful. I like to hear that. Giovanni says, if you were to play a Stonemaier game over the weekend, which would you play, excluding Rolling Realms? Well, I would probably include Rolling Realms. I always get excited when other people are getting excited about one of our new releases, so it probably would be Rolling Realms. I did play it very recently. I am also kind of getting the itch to play Red Rising. I really love Red Rising, and I haven't played it in a few months, and so I would consider that. This weekend, though, I am doing a Magic draft with an older Magic set, Kaldheim, that came out last year, because we haven't gotten it to the table yet. So that's the game that I'm probably playing this weekend. Gary says, what are your thoughts on the Rock, Paper, Scissors Deluxe Edition Kickstarter? He says it mocks tropes of Kickstarter and one specific point is deluxe editions. My issue is with some involved having current Kickstarters running that have deluxe editions, and it comes across as hypocritical, at least to me, and such makes me want to drop my pledge. Let's say I don't completely understand your concern there, Gary, but from what I understand, the Rock Paper Scissors Deluxe Kickstarter is really just a way for you to support the YouTube channel that I'm forgetting his name offhand, but he runs kind of a mockumentary style YouTube channel where he creates fake. It's called like Dragon's Den, I think, maybe Dragon something, where he creates fake rules for games and explains them in a very serious way. And I think the game is just that. I think it's just him trying to get financial support for his channel in a fun way that's on theme with his channel. That's the way I perceived it. Tim says, Tim has some nice things to say about his local game store / bookstore. He says, your brother's bookstore is very supportive of the community. They donate to charity, they open themselves for people to stop by and relax, and will host a number of neat events, including a weekly game night. He says, we've been so happy to have the Midwest Writers Guild call that store home. That's wonderful to hear, Tim. And I believe that's in Evansville, Indiana, if I have that correct. Justin here from Room 51, he says, have you ever given up on a Stonemaier project? Like a game that you originally were going to publish, but decided after working on it that you should back away from it. What happened? I mean, I back away from a lot of games at different stages of the design process. There is one game that we will eventually publish in some form, but it was one of these games where we tested it, we blind play tested it. I was not the designer of it; it was some other designers were working on it, and it got to a certain point where it was good, but it just wasn't good enough. And the designers decided to take a break from it. I am now technically the designer of the new version of the game. I'm still working on that. But it was one of those things where I haven't completely given up on it. We will publish this game at some point, but we tested many different versions and they just weren't working out, and we were just taking a little break from it to figure out how to make it best work. There's also an expansion to a game. I won't mention which expansion or which game, but there was an expansion that someone else was working on for a while for a game where it just wasn't working. It just wasn't what it needed to be, and they essentially had to end up completely redesigning the expansion. And they did a great job with it, but the original version of it just didn't work out. And I learned a lot from that process too, as more of a developer instead of a designer on that, where I should have examined it very closely earlier in the process so they didn't feel like they wasted a number of months working on that expansion, which was the end result of it, of at least that version of the expansion. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Dragon's Tomb, not Dragon's Den. Dragon's Tomb is the YouTube channel. Giovanni says that he is itching to play Scythe, Rolling Realms, and Wingspan. I hope you are able to do that. Yeah. Tim says he's excited to play Rolling Realms. Tim just got his copy and his champion t-shirt. I didn't actually even know Joe was handling the champion t-shirts. I didn't know they were ready yet, but Tim received his shirt. You can see that on Tim's Instagram. Tim, feel free to share your Instagram if you want in the comments below. Zach says, do you think you would ever make a holiday-themed realms for Rolling Realms? You know, I don't want to say no, Zach. I don't have any plans to do that. I plan to mostly base Rolling Realms on games that we publish, but you never know. There could be something out there for a specific holiday, a specific charity endeavor, something like that at some point in the future. You never know. It's so flexible and it's so easy to make a new realm. Well, it's not easy necessarily to design it, but the manufacturing, the production side of it is relatively easy to make a new pack of Realms cards. Justin wants to say some good things about Montag's Games in Pearland, Texas. Amazing store with a great owner that is always there to help. Briss says, now I want to know if there is a game for you that gives you the hardest time to teach. So I'll say this about a Stonemaier Games product, Euphoria. I'm really happy with how the design of Euphoria turned out. But I designed a lot of interconnected systems in Euphoria, and the result is that it is fairly hard to teach, because if you want to teach how the commodity areas work, you also need to teach how the allegiance track works and how the worker placement works. And so every one thing that you want to teach branches off into several other things, and some of those things even branch off into other things, opposed to viticulture, for example, which is very linear to teach. You don't even have to say that much before you start the game of viticulture. You can just say, okay, let's do a spring. We'll do spring. Here's how spring works. And everyone can just do it. And then you do summer, and you can explain how summer works, and you just do it. It's very linear in that way, even though viticulture has kind of an order of operations to it. That order of operations doesn't need to be explained before you start to play the game, whereas in Euphoria it does. So I find Euphoria fairly difficult to teach. Chad says, not sure if you're actively considering new suppliers. I wouldn't say we are, but I'll still read your comment here. He says, I recently did some design work for a supplier called GPI, Grand Prix International. Great people based out of Massachusetts. They already make a lot of great looking games, so I thought I'd mention them. Yeah, I'm happy to give them a nice shout out here. I am really, really happy working with Panda. And so for a variety of reasons, we just have a great, strong relationship, and I don't really shop around. I think there are some publishers that whenever they have a new game, they shop it around the different manufacturers. I don't do that. I want to keep our relationship with Panda really, really strong. And it's one of mutual trust, where we try to work together. We try to compromise when we need to. We're honest about our mistakes. And yeah, I'm really happy working with Panda. Okay, Gary explains this comment about the Dragon's Tomb Kickstarter. He says, I just find the act of disparaging deluxe editions while they have one currently running seems hypocritical. I think that's kind of the point of of parody, though, isn't it? Like when you do a parody of something, you're poking fun of it by doing that same thing yourself. But I can see what you're saying there, that it does seem a little hypocritical, but I think that's the point of the parody in this case. I think he's using humor to make a point with an actual product that people can hopefully still use and play with. But again, in the end, I don't think that campaign is about the product or about the game itself. Obviously, you don't need components to play rock, paper, scissors. I think it's about supporting that creator. Similar to, and many other content creators outside of the gaming space have done this over the years, with maybe the first and most, or not first, but maybe most notable one being The Oatmeal, when The Oatmeal did Exploding Kittens. That was a way that people could financially support The Oatmeal if they wanted, by getting a game using a lot of the Oatmeal art and the feel of The Oatmeal. Even though the game is, it's a very light game. I don't know how many people are actively playing Exploding Kittens on an ongoing basis, but it was a nice way to support that non-board game content creator. Milton says, have you ever thought about Stonemaier publishing a game with an app-driven portion, like Alchemist, Search for Planet X, or Return to Dark Tower? Yeah, Milton, this is a question I get from time to time, and my answer is generally no. And the main reason for that is, from my experience with licensing our games for digital productions, digital ports, as much as I love digital developers doing that for us, that is a huge service that they can offer us and for our community, they are never on schedule. I've come to expect them to be at least a year or 18 months behind what they originally project. And that's fine for a digital version of a game. Uh, but it's not fine if I have a game that relies on a digital app, and that digital app, like any digital game, ends up being 12 to 18 months behind schedule, because then it's just really holding up the game. So that for that and the reason, and related to that, the fact that I am not myself a programmer or digital developer, so I don't have control over that. It's something that I have to outsource to someone else who knows how to do it, and then I'm kind of beholden to their schedule. Um, and so I don't see us ever making a game that relies on an app. I do see opportunities for apps that might enhance a gaming experience. Like with Between Two Castles, there is an augmented reality scoring app that you can buy. No royalties come to Stonemaier Games. They all go to the creator of the app. But it makes scoring for that game really, really fast and easy and almost kind of magical when you use the app, because you just hold it over each castle and it scores that castle for you. But that the game isn't dependent on that. There's a score pad in the game that you can use instead of doing that. Yeah, so that's my short answer, maybe too long answer to that question. I will say though that I am always impressed when a company does it. When they have a game that relies on an app and the app really enhances the gameplay experience, I think, and you mentioned some great examples here, I think that's amazing when companies can do that. It's just not something that I think we're going to pursue at Stonemaier Games. Edgar also asked if I'm excited for Essen Spiel and any games that caught my eye. And the only one that I've really played is Morano Light Masters, and I really enjoy that game. I would recommend checking out Morano Light Masters from Matago if you go to Essen. And I did just watch, the Game Boy Geek had a top 10 list of games that he's looking forward to at Essen. And there were one or two that jumped out to me. Let me see if I can find that video real quick. That might answer a few of your questions, because obviously a few of you are thinking about Essen right now. Game Boy Geek. What was, okay. Top 10 most anticipated games at Essen. He talked about, oh, there was one that I hadn't heard of before that sounded pretty cool. Okay, this game, Bequest. Bequest is a multiplayer I Cut You Choose game. I'd never heard of it before watching this video, but that sounded really cool. I love I Cut You Choose. I think it's really innovative to bring it into a multiplayer system instead of just a two-player head-to-head system. And yeah, that sounds fun, Bequest. So I am very curious about the game Bequest. I have a very anxious kitty down here, so I'm going to give him some food. Hi, Walter. Hi. There you go. Dusty from the Mill says, if you had to wholesale swap intellectual property and titles with another board game company, which would it be? So they would become the owners of the full slate of Stonemaier Games products, and you would become the owners of what? Well, that is a fun hypothetical question, Dusty. I think the obvious answer is I wouldn't do that. I'm really happy with what we've created in our community, but I'd have to pick a company that it's not just about their intellectual property. It's about the communities that have been built and have grown around their games as well. And I know less about that than the games that other companies make. One other company that I really like is I don't know. It's so hard to pick. I love Red Raven Games. I love Roxley Games is amazing. And I'm trying to pick other companies that are very focused on a few specific products each year, but have done great things with them. So Red Raven, Roxley, and Thunderworks, and Thundergriff, two Thunder games, Thunderworks and Thundergriff. Those are all pretty amazing companies there. But I'm leaving out some truly amazing companies that have all the things that I just mentioned. Great games, not too many games, and great communities around those games too. Yeah, that's a fun question though, Dusty. Giovanni says there's a Stonemaier Champion T-shirt. Yes, yeah. So a few months ago, we took pre-orders for the annual Stonemaier Games Champion T-shirt that we make, and we've already made them. So so that we have a different shirt every year for Champion. So we've already made them for this year, and apparently some of them are already shipping out. And we'll do it again next year with a new shirt. The shirt that I'm wearing today is the Meeple Source version of a Stonemaier shirt that I think Meeple Source still offers. It's a great shirt. Yeah, so Tim says he remembers learning Euphoria and how hard that was to learn or teach. He says, Obsession was a bit of a task going from scratch. He says, I'm not the best teacher before a video and some play. It might have helped if I'd set it up. I didn't even know what the game looked like. So Tim basically showed up at Geekway and found Obsession in the Geekway library and brought it out and started to learn it so that we could learn it and play it together. And he's right. It was like on the spot at a convention is a tough time to learn a game with a lot of nuances like Obsession, but it is actually not that difficult of a game to learn or play. And once I get a copy of the game, teaching it will be much easier now that I know how to play. But on the spot at a convention, I think there are certain games that work for that at a convention. Games that are really easy to sit down and learn a few rules and play the game. Whereas there are some games that are just kind of a beast to learn at a convention, especially with so many distractions around at a convention. That can add to the difficulty of it, to no fault of the game itself. Simon also says, what game are you looking forward to from Essen? My two answers for that are Morano Light Masters, which is the only Essen game that I've played, and Bequest, a game that I just heard about from the Game Boy Geek the other day on his video about his top 10 Essen releases. Bequest looks really, really cool. It's a multiplayer I-cut-you split game. Edgar says he's excited about Ark Nova. I'm excited about that too, because I love Forland. The expansions to Lost Ruins of Arnak, I'm excited about that too. He says Adele, Bitoku, and Free Radical. Bitoku does intrigue me, especially it's the same publisher as Red Cathedral, which is a really, really clever game. So I'm curious to see what they do with Bitoku. Oh, I see. Okay, Gary, sorry, I've misunderstood some of your comments about the Rock, Paper, Scissors Deluxe campaign. He says he's not hypocritical of that campaign itself. He says he is a little disappointed with some people who were involved with that campaign who also have deluxe edition games on Kickstarter right now. That totally makes sense. So if you look at the Rock, Paper, Scissors Deluxe campaign, it mentions a couple different people. Like there's an artist and there's a solo designer. There's a few other people who are kind of part of the parody on the Rock, Paper, Scissors campaign, but at the same time, they have deluxe versions of their games on Kickstarter. But yeah, and Gary, I guess my one thought about that is I think Kickstarter is actually a really good place for deluxe games. I think oftentimes they end up being a little overinflated in terms of pricing, but I think it's a great place and opportunity to offer the retail version of the game and a deluxe version of the game to people the early adopters who really want the most beautiful, most enhanced version of the game ever. And yeah, do we make fun of it a little bit? Sure. We also make fun of stretch goals. We make fun of other elements of Kickstarter. But as consumers, as backers, sometimes I get excited about that kind of stuff. I personally rarely back the deluxe versions of games because they end up being so much more expensive. But there are instances where I think they are priced in a fair way compared to the value of the game that does inspire me to back the deluxe version. So usually I back the normal version. I think recently with Dog Park, I thought they did a great job of adding some fun deluxe components, but not overpricing it. And so I did back the deluxe version of Dog Park on Kickstarter. One game actually that has been on Kickstarter since my last livecast is Mythwind. Currently, I'm kind of a low-level backer on Mythwind because it is pretty expensive, but I love the ambition of it, and I love the idea of a cooperative game where there isn't a defined win or lose state or win or lose point in the game. You just play as long as you want, and you define what is winning or losing to you, what's important to you based on what you do in the game, which I think is a really clever approach. We've seen that in many video games, but we haven't really seen that in a tabletop game yet, other than with Earthborn Rangers. And as I say that, I'm having deja vu. Maybe I did talk about that recently. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it. And I'm curious to see if I end up increasing my pledge for that to a full game. Gerald says, will future Rolling Realms and expansions include expansions? I don't have any plans to do that. I think most of the realms for Rolling Realms will focus on new games, not expansions themselves. But I guess if there was an expansion, if we did an expansion that was very, very different than the core game, then maybe. But I think that's unlikely. Yeah, you never know. I won't say never, but probably not. I don't have any plans to do that. Tim says, I was amazed to discover that Arby's has their own D&D dice. Yeah, that's crazy. I did not I would not associate Arby's with Dungeons and Dragons, but it's actually kind of clever marketing. Like maybe if they can somehow associate their brand with Dungeons and Dragons, then when people are playing Dungeons and Dragons, they'll go to Arby's. I don't know. Tim says, would Stonemaier Games ever create their own sets of dice for role playing games? I don't have any plans to go into the dice market in that way. There are a few custom dice that we sell on our website, but they're associated with existing games. Tapestry and the Rise of Fenris have dice that we sell separately on our web store. But as someone who doesn't really play role playing games myself, I need to play them. I need to play a few more, but I haven't played them. I know nothing about that market and probably won't get into it in any way. Amanda says, can you give a shout out to my boyfriend, Amanda's boyfriend, Jesus Ramirez? He doesn't have a Facebook, but he watches you religiously on YouTube. Sure, of course. Hey, Jesus, hope you're doing well. Maybe, I don't know if it's a special occasion for you, but I love when people like your girlfriend Amanda ask for something special for you. So I hope you're having a great day, and thank you for checking out my YouTube channel. As usual, I'll put this video on YouTube after I'm done recording today so that anyone who isn't able to watch it live can watch it there. And that's the best place for people to post questions and comments after the live stream is done, because YouTube gives me better alerts than Facebook does about new comments and questions. Tim mentions a few other Essen games. Again, the Lost Ruins of Arnak expansion, Origins First Builders, and Azul Queen's Garden. Chad says, any new books that you've enjoyed recently? I'm reading 2 books right now. I'm still going through the audiobook of World War Z, doing that while I do my daily run. And at night, I am reading the 2nd book in the Scholomance duology, which is a very kind of twisted version of, I don't want to say Harry Potter, but like a school of magic, a magical academy, a twisted version of that. And I believe it's just a 2-book series. The 2nd book came out very recently, and I'm reading that right now, and I'm definitely enjoying it. What about you, Chad? What are you reading right now? Ilya just popped in from the YouTube channel Covray. Ilya and Tyler and their channel Covray were part of our recent charity auction. Thank you so much for participating in that. I really appreciate that. Before I finish off the questions here, let me see if there's any comments that I haven't covered today. I have a little play test today. I won't say what it's for, but I do have a play test this afternoon. Yeah, I think I've covered everything else at different points in the video. Oh, just want to say again that I will be doing a Rolling Realms live play tomorrow, either here or in the Rolling Realms Facebook group, or both, if I can pull that off, of 3 realms. So I'll do a 1-round live play, and then I think I'll try to do that on an ongoing basis, maybe once a day, maybe once every couple of days, of just doing 1 round of the game. So you can get a little snippet, a little taste of Rolling Realms if you want, without taking out a bigger chunk of your day if you want to join me. And I'll put those, of course, on YouTube so you can watch them after the fact. You don't have to watch them live, but it is fun for people when they participate live. Or fun for me, I think, when other people participate live. George says, are you from time to time thinking about how to design a new combat mechanism for a future game release, but find it difficult to come up with something fresh, not predetermined and luck-based? Your Sunday discussion with Ira was interesting and touched upon several problems to those combat systems. I'm often thinking about combat systems. They're not a focus of my games. I don't think they ever will be, but there are points in games where I think combat makes sense, or conflict of some sort makes sense. And so yeah, it's on my mind quite a bit to figure out a way to do that is interesting to me and fun to players, gives plenty of agency, but has a little bit of variability, a little bit of uncertainty. Yeah. I think about it even more now in terms of skill tests. I think of it, especially if you're going against the AI, I think of it as a skill test mechanism almost, in terms of when exactly you can have agency and when exactly you don't have agency. Joshua says, I played Mariposas recently and enjoyed it. I understand that it doesn't fit the Stonemaier Games brand, but it still feels like a missed opportunity. Have you considered starting a second brand for more casual fare? Yeah, that's interesting. I don't consider it a missed opportunity because I think it's really important. I think, especially at that time, I think it was really important for Elizabeth to work with other publishers. I think it's wonderful for me to work with Elizabeth on Wingspan, but Elizabeth is not just the designer of Wingspan. She's also the designer of Tussie Mussy, of Mariposas. She's designing other games too. So I think it's really important and for her to work with other publishers. And I think it was important for us to say, this isn't a good fit for Stonemaier Games. But I think it's important for you to create relationships with other publishers as well. So I think it was a made opportunity for Elizabeth. maybe you were saying it was a missed opportunity for Stonemaier Games, but I don't know. It wasn't a good fit for us. I think Mary Posters is a great game, but at the same time, it isn't a fit for Stonemaier Games. I guess that's your last question. Have you considered starting a second brand for more casual fare? Not really. I mean, we like Rolling Realms is a more casual game. It is like we go after event games, the main feature of a game night. Rolling Realms, I don't know if I would call it that. I mean, it's close, but it's not necessarily that. It's maybe half of a game night. It's not a filler, but it's not the full game night either. And so our games, I think our games have evolved a little bit in terms of playing times and things like that. Between Two Castles is not a super long game. Between Two Cities isn't a super long game. Rolling Realms, we try to make all of our games accessible to a variety of people. And so I would say, we are trying to accomplish what you are saying there without creating a second brand or an imprint, because I'm not really interested in doing that. I think it's good for us to stay focused on what we do well, while still while still being accessible and thinking about accessibility and onboarding for our games to a variety of different types of gamers. So I think we're able to accomplish what you're saying there without creating a spin-off imprint or second brand, which I think would detract focus from our core competencies. Okay. Chad is clarifying that a few Wednesdays ago, he mentioned the acronym LOR, and he meant Lord of the Rings. Chad, I think when I normally see that acronym, it's capital L, lowercase o, lowercase t, and then capital R. I think that's maybe the most common way of showing that acronym. And so I was a little confused by the capital L, capital O, capital R acronym for Lord of the Rings. Tim mentioned it as for what I was referring there to Joshua's question, the idea of an imprint called Pebblemire, which is more related to like the My Little Scythe experiment that we did, where we created a more family/kids version of an existing game. It was something that I pondered in a blog post a while ago, along with a lot of other feedback that we got about some of our games, and I know I haven't really thought much about Pebblemire in a while. I really want to stay focused, and part of that focus means that we only make 1 or 2 new games a year. I don't want to make more than that. I want to respect your wallets and the wallets of the people who have so many game choices to make these games these days, and our time. I want to stay very focused on a few games and really share. When we do make a game, it means that it's really special to us. We think it's really special for you. And creating any imprint, I think, would inevitably mean that we're making more games, and that's just not a part of a focus of how we're growing. We're trying to grow by making games that really stick with people and hit the table for many, many years on an ongoing basis. That's the type of growth that I'm looking for at Stonemaier Games. Mike says, how do we know if RR means Red Rising or Rolling Realms? Yeah, we've had both of our 2021 releases have the RR acronym, and I think you just got to spell out the words, because I don't think the acronym works in this case, unless you add like lowercase letters in there, like Re-Ri and Ro-Ri. But I think we might just have to call them by their names instead of going by the acronyms. Yeah. I will end with that question today. Thank you all for participating. I love these questions. Even if I get a little flustered sometimes by the questions, I still love the questions. Thank you so much for asking them. They're good, healthy challenges, good things for me to think about. I really do appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and post this video on YouTube, as I usually do. Actually, no, I see one last question from Reed. He says, will you ever come out with a big box blinged out Viticulture special edition? And the answer is no, we won't be doing that. We'll, like with any of our products, we continue to sell them separately on an ongoing basis. And even with like the Wingspan big box, it's just a box and an organizer. We're not putting all the Wingspan stuff in there because we want you to be able to buy exactly what you want, instead of us creating a hugely overpriced version of the game that includes stuff that you already have or that you don't want. I think the a la carte version option works best for us. So if you want some Viticulture stuff, go ahead and buy Viticulture now, because there's never going to be some giant blinged out $300 version of Viticulture. You might add together all the different things into your cart to get up to a big price point, but not within a single product. All right, I'll end on that note today. I'll see you over on YouTube if you have any follow-up questions or comments, and I hope you have a great week. Take care. Bye.